Hello everyone and welcome to Advanced Excels. In this video, you will learn all about VBA and macros. So without further wait, let's start the session.
But before we begin the session, make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you'll never miss any update from us.
Hello and welcome to yet another video by Intellipaat. In this video, I will be talking about macros and VBA, and that is the agenda. Before starting to work with VBA and macros, we need to understand what these terms mean. So VBA stands for Visual Basic for Applications. It is a programming language that was developed by Microsoft and is owned by the same. Now macros are a piece of code for repetitive tasks involving the same steps every single time. When you create a macro, you automate all the steps in it and link them to a shortcut instead of doing each step individually. Now you can just use the shortcut keys and the task will be done. As the VBA is a programming language, it is used to write macros in the VBA editor and they get implemented in the Excel sheet. Now let us do some hands-on for VBA and macros. The very first hands-on will be an introduction to the VBA editor. Now let's go to MS Excel and see how to do that. So now here we are and we'll open a new blank workbook. We have a new sheet here. Let's name it macro or let it be VBA. Enter. So in order to work with VBA and go on forward with macros, the very first step will be to open the VBA editor. Now there are two ways which will make it happen. So the very first step or the way is to go to the developer tab right here, click on it, and right here you can see Visual Basic. If you click on it, you'll get this VBA editor. And let's see the second way. The second way is to press the shortcut Alt plus F11. Let's try that. I'm pressing Alt right now and then F11. There you have it. So these are the two ways in which you can open this VBA editor and move on forward with the VBA and macros. One more thing that I would like to talk about here is, in some cases, what happens is this developer tab right here might not be visible. So let's see how we can make it visible if it is not visible. Just go to File, click on File, come at the bottom of the strip and you will see more. Click on Options. Here you have a lot of options here. Just click on Customize Ribbon. And here you can see when in the main tab, we have all these tabs that are ticked. In some cases, it might happen that this is unticked. So you just come to this Customize Ribbon option, click on Developer, and in that way, it will be visible. With that, let's move on to our next hands-on. So our introduction to VBA editor is done. Then we did getting the developer tab as well. Next we have recording a macro. Let's see how it's done. Now recording a macro. As you can see, I'm in the same workbook called book 1. And it's the same sheet, and in this sheet we're going to record a macro. But before moving forward, we need to make sure that we go to the developer option, and every time we choose to record a macro, we need to make sure that use relative reference is always clicked. It is always checked. Now here you can see we have the option called record macro. So if we just click on it, it will ask us the name of the macro. Let's say the name of the macro that we give here is color, or let's say highlight. And the option, the shortcut key, it is given here as CTRL plus. We can give any shortcut like CTRL, F, G, whatever suits you. And if you want to give like CTRL plus shift plus something, if I just press CTRL and shift and let's say E, let's say we want shift and E in addition to CTRL. So we'll just go ahead and press shift E. There you have it. The shortcut for our highlight macro is CTRL plus shift plus E. And we want this to get stored in this workbook itself. And if you want, you can give a little description, but it's not needed as of now. So we'll just go ahead and press. Now, as you can see right here, it says stop recording. It means that the recording is already in progress. And here as well, we have a symbol here. A macro is currently recording. Click to stop recording. Okay, let's do what you want to record. So recording a macro means a record of everything that you do on the worksheet. It will get recorded in the backend in the language VBA. So what we want to record here is we'll just go to our home tab and you can see the option fill color here. We'll choose any color, let's say this. And now we'll move to this. These are the two actions that we are taking in this worksheet of ours, and these are the actions that we have created a shortcut for, that is CTRL plus shift plus E. So we will now go ahead and pause it. So our two actions are now recorded. Let's see if it works with the shortcut that we created. So we'll just move to a random cell and we'll press the shortcuts CTRL shift and E. Remember what we did while recording a macro. We highlighted this cell and then moved to this one. So when we move to this cell and we click the shortcut CTRL plus Shift plus E, this cell should get colored in this same color, and then the cursor should move here. So we'll place it here and we'll go ahead with our shortcut, that is CTRL plus Shift and E. You see what it happens? Again, let's do that. So our macro is recorded now. So now that our macro is successfully running and we can see the output, it's not always that you make a number of macros and remember the shortcut for each and every one. So in that case, what you can do is just go to this developer tab, and here you can see macros. This option will show you a list of all the macros that you've created, and you can just select whichever macro you want to run and select and click, and then just select run here. So if I go here, I don't remember the shortcut, I'll just go to macro, select my macro and run. So I had selected this one, it had highlighted this one and then moved to this cell. Now there's one more feature that we'll look into. It's when you go to this option, that is view macros, and you click on it, you get the list of all the macros that you've created. But one more thing here is that the edit option. Whatever you did in this macro, that is highlighting a cell and then moving to a diagonal cell, it is all recorded in the backend, as I said earlier, and it is recorded in the language VBA. So if we just go ahead and click on edit, you can see the VBA editor opens up. Book 1 is the name of our worksheet, and module 1 is the name of the macro that we created, and this module 1 again has highlight as name of the macro that we gave. So as you can see, it gives you the keyboard shortcut here as well. We chose CTRL plus Shift plus E, it is right here. And whatever action we did, that is, we first selected a cell and then we chose to fill it with this particular color, with this theme, tint and shade, pattern, everything is there. This is our action when we decided to color it. After that, we moved to the cell diagonal to the current cell, and that is what is happening here. So everything you do while recording a macro gets recorded in the backend in the language VBA. One more thing that I would like to add here is, as you can see this green highlighted part, it is written in quotes. That means they are basically the comments and they won't get executed, while this part that stays between sub highlight and end sub, and they are not within quotes. These are the lines of the code that will get executed. Now it is recommended that you use these macros for lower level tasks and not high level tasks, as the high level tasks, they might require some modifications or the other, and macros, what they do is they will just replicate all the steps that you have recorded. They will do exactly the same and no modifications can be made. So only lower level tasks should be put into a macro that is recorded and made a shortcut for. With that, let's move on to our next hands-on. So recording a macro is done. Now we'll see how to save a macro workbook. That is a workbook or a worksheet that has a macro in it. Let's see how it is different. So we are back in this workbook that we had recorded a macro in. So let's try saving it. I'll just press CTRL plus S and it is asking me where do I want it to be saved. I have a folder here called Excel on my desktop itself. So I'll just go ahead and click here. Now I'll change the name to macro underscore highlight and I'll click on save. And now you can see it says the following features cannot be saved in macro free workbooks. That is the VB project. To save a file with these features, click no and then choose a macro enabled file type in the file type list. To continue a macro free workbook, click yes. As we have a macro, we need to click on no and then go ahead here and then click on this. It reads Excel macro enabled workbook. We have changed the save as type and click on save. Now this workbook is saved. Now that this file is saved, let me show you something really interesting. When I go to the location that this file is saved, you can see and spot a difference between files that don't have any macros in them and a file that has macro in it. So even visually with the icons, files with macros have a different icon here and you can see the files that don't have any macros in them. That way you can spot the difference between the files that have macros and the files that don't. With that, let's move on to our next hands-on. So our next hands-on here is writing a simple macro. Let's again move back to Excel and see how it is done. Okay, so we are back in the same sheet. I have changed the name to macro_VBA, and the very first sheet that we did here was highlighting macro. So in this macro we just highlighted. Now we'll see how to write a simple macro. We'll create another sheet here and let's rename it as writing_macro. So in case you are not a developer and you will see how to code the language VBA for the first time. So let's see how to do that. We'll just go to the developer tab and click on Visual Basic. That is, this option will be opening the VBA editor. There you go. And this is the first module that we did, that is selecting a cell, coloring it, and then moving to a diagonal cell. This was our first module, and let's go ahead and write a new one. So for writing a macro, the first thing that you need to do is to create a module. Let's see how to create a module. So to create a module, you have to go to Insert, and right here you will see the option Module. So if we click on this, another module will be created other than the one that we recorded earlier. We have module 2 right here, and let's say I want to change the name. I have the properties window right here, but in case this properties window is not visible for you, you can go to the view option and just click on properties window. I have it already here, so no changes visible. So now we'll go ahead and change the name of our new macro. We will write writing_macro. So now we have changed the name of our first macro, that is writing macro. Let's get to the coding part. So every macro is written in forms of sub procedures. So the first thing that we need to write here is write sub, give it a name. Let's say macro1. We'll give macro1 opening closing parenthesis and press enter. And right there you will get the end sub as well. Those are kind of the opening and ending lines. All the code you write between these two lines will get executed other than the comments. So let's go ahead and write a simple macro. So what we'll write here is we'll try to display a message on top of our Excel. So it will likely be a pop-up. So we will use the option message box, and if I want some strings, so I'll put it in double quotes. Let's say I'll put Intellipaat Excel and close. To see results or to make this simple program run, there are two options. Either you can click on this button right here, you can see that it says run sub or user form, or you click here and you'll get a bunch of options that says run, break, reset. Either of those works. So we'll just click on this run sub, and right here you can see we have here Intellipaat Excel. This is the message that we wrote in the message box. We'll just click on OK and we'll go back to the VBA editor. There you go. Now let's say I want another message. I will write message box, and this time I don't want any string. I don't want a statement. I don't want words. I want numbers. So 1, 2, 3. I just want 1, 2, 3. So again, if I press run, we'll get Intellipaat Excel first and then 1, 2, 3. That is how it works. Each time a line gets executed, it will pop up on the Excel sheet. So first this line gets executed. So this output we see that says Intellipaat Excel. Then another pop-up we see says 1, 2, 3. And that is it. That is how you write a very simple macro. I hope you have an understanding of this. Let's now move on to our next hands-on. Now writing a simple macro is done. We'll see how to reference a cell through a macro using VBA. Now here we're again in the same worksheet, that is macro_VBA. I have created a new sheet here that says referencing a cell. In this sheet, we are going to see how to reference a cell from the macro VBA itself. Let's say I have the VBA editor open and I want to access this cell right here from the VBA editor. So let's see how that is done. So what we need to do is we need to go to the developer tab and we'll go to Visual Basics. That is, it will open the VBA editor. As you can see, we have two macros already here. That is, we recorded the first macro that is highlighting a cell and then moving to the diagonal cell. And the second one we have here is writing a macro. We tried displaying two messages. First one says Intellipaat Excel and the second one says 1, 2, 3. Now we'll go ahead and we'll try to create one more macro that is referencing a cell through the VBA itself. So the very first step will be to create a module. So we have another module here and let's name it. Keep the things in order. I have renamed the first and second as A and B in the starting of the name so that they stay in order. We'll put here C underscore cell referencing. Cell underscore referencing. Press enter and that is done. So let's now go ahead with the coding part. So we'll double click on this and we have the window here. So the very first step is to create a sub. We will call it sub cell underscore just R, cell referencing. So when you press enter, we get the end sub as well. So let's say I have this cell right here, E6, and I want to input some data right from my VBA editor using VBA and macros. How do we do that? So let's go to the editor itself and now we'll type active cell dot. Active cell points out to E6, that is the cell in which my cursor currently is. When you press active cell dot, you get a bunch of options here. That is, these are basically functions which will help you do different tasks. So let's see how do we input data in our current cell from macro. So active cell dot, I will put value because I want to put in some value in the cell E6. So we'll put equals to. If it is a text, that is a string, we'll put double quotes. But I am just going to enter say 42 and we will run this and let's see. Yeah, I've adjusted my screen and you can see that the value 42 is entered here. Let's try to change that. We will put 109 and when we run it again, the value changes. So that is how you access cells in your Excel sheet from the VBA editor. Let's say I want to add or change the value to something else. I'll again type in active cell dot value equals, I want to put a text this time, okay. Intellipaat 123 and now let's press on run. So we did not see 109 anywhere. Let me just change that, 67, and we'll run it again. Again, no change. We just get 123, that is Intellipaat 123. How do we know that it accepted the value 67? Well, there is a way to know, that is a way to see line by line compilation and execution in your VBA code. Let's see how that is done. Line by line execution, we need a button called step into. But as you can see, none of the buttons are named as step into. So what we do is just go to view, click on toolbars and click on debug. Right there we have our step into button. For seeing line by line execution, we need to click on this. Once the execution is done of the line that says active cell dot value equals to 7, the value in the cell E6 is updated and changed to 67. Now if I press step into again, when the line with the text Intellipaat 123 gets executed, the value in the cell E6 will be updated. There you go. And it is ending. So let's say if I add one more data here, active cell dot value equals to 78, and now I will do step into again. So first line, second line gets executed, we get the value. Third line gets executed, we get the value. Fourth line gets executed, we get the value, and now the sub ends. That is how you reference a cell from your VBA editor. So now here you can see that the step into button, it says that you have a shortcut called F8. So instead of just going to the debug bar and pressing the button every single time, we'll just use the shortcut that is F8. So let's say I want to enter a value in a cell that is not active. Let's say you want to do it in C3. So what we'll type here is we'll use square brackets, type in C3 dot value equals 54. And now we'll press F8 and see how the step-by-step execution takes place. So the first line, second line will get executed now. That is the active cell, that is E6. Value gets changed. Then the third line, now the fourth line, and let's see what happens when we execute this. There you go. In C3 we have the value 54. Let's say I want to put here in B2. So we'll use square bracket, put B2, square bracket close, value, and I want to put some text. So quotes Excel macro. Again, this we'll use F8. First line, second line gets executed, this gets executed, then we have 78, then 54, and then B2 will have Excel macro. That is it. Now let's say that you don't want to enter values or reference the cells in your sheet this way. We have seen how to enter values in the active cell. We have seen how to enter values in the cells that are not active, and now we'll see another way, that is how to enter values in entire rows. Like let's say you want to enter particular values in a range of rows. So what we can do is take square brackets, and let's say you want to enter the value from D1 to D5. I'll type in D1 colon to D5, close the bracket. Either you can type dot value or simply you can just put equals and put in the value. Let's say I want 10 in all of those rows. Let's see the execution by pressing F8. First line, we get 67 here. Then we'll get Intellipaat 1, 2, 3. Then we'll get 78. And in C3 we'll get 54, which does not change for Excel macro. And now from D1 to D5, let's see if we get the change or not. There you go. This is the third way to reference a cell from VBA. This way you can enter a value in a range of rows, not just single cells, but more than a single cell. Now there's another way to reference a cell. Let's see how to do that.
Just a quick info, guys. If you are looking for data analytics course, then we have a good news for you. Intellipaat is providing an advanced certification in data analytics for business with IIT Madras. The course is of very high quality and very cost effective. The course link is given in the description below.
Let's say I want a value in H8. How do you do that? There's a way how to do it. So when I type in cells and open the bracket, it asks for row index. I want a value in H8, so the row number is 8. I will put in 8 right here, and then it asks the column index. So H is also 8, that is, if we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 and 8. Dot value equals, I want 1, 2, 3. And let's press F8 and see the execution. All this we already know, no changes. Let's see if this line gets executed. There you have it. In H8, we have our value 1, 2, 3. And that was another way to reference a cell directly from your VBA editor. Now there is another way to reference a cell from your VBA editor. That is probably the fifth method. So instead of using different formats, there is one format that is widely used across all platforms. We will just type in range, give your range. Let's say we just want in A5, we want a value. Put in double quotes, we put in A5 dot value space equals, and I want 777. And let's try running that. That is F8. Click on F8. First line, no changes, no changes. Let's see in this if we get at A5, if we get the value 777. There you have it. Now this format, that is range, I can put in more than one cell. So if I take from, let's say, A6 to A11, and double quotes again, closing bracket. We will put value equals to 456, and when we run that, that is pressing F8, what we should get is all these values, that is cells A6 to A11, it should be filled with 456. Let's try running that. No changes, no changes. Now if we run this, let's see what happens. There it is. So the range format, it works with a single cell and as well as a range of cells. This is the most diverse and most used format for referencing cells using the VBA editor. And that is it for this hands-on. These are all the methods that you use to reference a cell. First one is using active cell, be it any text or number. Active cell dot value will do the work. Then we have this format. These two formats or these three formats are rarely used. The most used one is this one, as I said earlier, and second one is this one. And with that, let's move on to our next hands-on. So referencing a cell through a macro using VBA is done. Next up we have copy paste. Let's see how to do that. To copy paste, what I am doing here is I am in the same sheet as earlier, that is macro VBA, and I have created a new sheet here that is copy paste, and as you can see it is completely blank. To access it from the VBA editor, what we need to do is first create a new module, and I will name this module. Now let's name this module as d_copy paste. Press enter and a new module is ready. Double click. Here we have the module editor. So first we'll create a sub called copy paste braces. Here we have the n sub. So what I'll try to do, we have two methods here. So first method here is, first we'll try to put in a bunch of content, let's say in A1 to A10, and then we'll copy it in some other rows. As we learned in the previous hands-on, we'll put, let's say, dot value, and here we'll give, I'll want text Excel. So let's use our shortcut, and there we have it. Now how to paste this specific content in another rows. So what we're going to do is we'll take another range. Let's say range I want in the row, in the column C. So I'll put C1 to C10 equals to range A1 to A10 dot value. And now we'll try to execute this one by one. So F8, this is already executed, so no changes. Now we'll see if the value gets pasted in the column C. There you have it. This is how you copy paste. Now this was the first method. Let's see how do we execute the second method. Now let's talk about our second method here. So I'll give some space here, and what I'm going to type is, so we have our original content in the column A. So we'll type range A1 to A10, and we'll give a command that says copy. There you have it. And let's say we want to paste it in the column E. So again we'll go range, we'll give our range that is E1 to E10. We close it all, and there's another function called paste special. And one more line that we are going to type here is application dot cut copy mode, and we'll give this as false. Now what this does is, okay, let's see that while we execute this entire thing. We'll keep our cursor here, and using F8 we'll execute line by line. So no changes here, and after we execute it, this gets copied. As you can see, we have a selection here, we can see by these moving dotted lines, and now we execute this very line that says paste special. It will get pasted, it should get pasted in the column E. There you have it. Now what you see here, we still have those dancing dotted lines right here. We don't want that. We don't want it to be presented like that. It is just a selection mode. So what this does is cut copy mode equals to false. This will remove the dotted lines. So there you have it. Now this was the second method to copy paste, and that is how you copy paste. These are the two methods. This is the first method you see right here, using range, that is basic copying and pasting manually. Here we are using two functions, that is copy function and then paste special function. With that, let's move on to our next hands-on. So now copy paste is done. Next hands-on is changing fonts and font color using VBA. Let's again go to our Excel worksheet and see how it is done. So we are working with the same workbook, that is Macro VBA, and I have created a new worksheet here that says changing font and font color. So let's see what we need to do next. We'll open our VBA editor, and the very important step that we need to do here is creating a new module. So let's create a new module. We'll go to insert and module. So we'll change the name here, and the name should be changing font and font color. Okay, changing underscore color. There you have it. We will put here to make it in order. There you go. Now let's create a sub that says changing font. Let's just do that there. So in changing font and font color, first we need to add some text here. So let's add the text. Range, we want A1 to A10 and dot value equals F8. Let's execute that now. There you have it. Now that we have our content here, let's try making some changes, like changing the font type, size, bolding it, doing italics. We'll select the same range, that is A1, A10 dot value. That is a common mistake. We don't want any changes in the value. We want changes in the font, everything related to the font. So we will type in font dot. Now you get a bunch of options here, like background, bold, color index, italic, name, size, all the options you get here. Now let's say I want it to be bold. So I will select bold here and we'll give its value as true. Now let's say we want this range. Let's say this is in Calibri right now and we want it in Arial. So we will put the range dot font dot, you can select from here, name. We have name here, and equals to, we will give Arial. Now let's try executing it by pressing F8. So no changes here. Now let's see what happens. Now the entire row has been bolded. Let's see what happens next when we execute Arial. Changed. You can see the name here is Arial now, not Calibri. This is how you make changes to the font. Let's see what else can we do. Now let's see the same thing regarding underline, strike through, all that. I'll just copy it to save time, paste it here. I don't want bold, I want underline, font dot underline. There you have it, and I will give it true. Let's say I want a strike through as well. So again, I'll paste it, and I don't want this. I want font dot strike through. Enter, and I'll give this as true as well. Let's try executing by pressing F8. So no changes, you've done this already. True, this is bold, is already done. It's Arial. Let's see underline. There you have it. All the content in the column A is underlined now. Let's see what happens when you put a strike through. There you have it. Now I want all this as false. I want all this removed. So I want underlined and strike through removed. I'll copy and I'll paste it here. So instead of true, I will give false, and again here I will give false. There. Now F8, all this is done. Now let's see what happens when we put font or underline as false. It's gone. Underline is gone. Next, the strike through, that is also gone. Like this, you can make all the changes, even though it's easier to do it from here. But if you want to turn those steps into a macro, you can put it here in the VBA editor and make all the changes very easily. Now let's take a look at changing the font color. Now we will try changing the color. So we'll take what content we have here is A1 to A10 dot font, and as you can see here, you have the option of color. Here, every time you give the name of a color, you have to type VB in front of it. Let's say I want red. Okay, this is how you change color. And there's another way, we can give the color index. So I'll just copy this, come here and paste it. You don't want all this. So font dot color and color index. So we will give color index here. So the color index, it works up till 56, not beyond that. So let's say I will give the color index 12 here. Now we'll try doing all this by pressing F8. So first, this is already done. Bold, theme is already Arial. You want underline now, you want strike through. We don't want underline, we don't want strike through. Now the color should change to red. There you have it. And let's see what color is at the color index 12. It's some form of olive green. So if I change the color index to, let's say, 58, as I said, it won't work past 56, so it should throw an error. So again, we'll do F8. This is already all done. The color will change to red now, and says subscript out of range. So we end it, and if I type, let's say 34, because it is less than 56, and we'll again execute, everything is functioning, red, and 34. It is some form of light blue. We'll again go to 1. 1 is black, we get red, then 1. So that is how you change the font related attributes and the color. These are the ways. So let's move on to our next hands-on. Now we have implemented changing fonts and font color using VBA, and our next hands-on is how to implement the width block. Let's go to our Excel sheet and see what is the width block and how it is implemented. So what is the purpose of writing a macro? It is supposed to reduce our task and the time it takes. But as you can see, I have written range dot font like multiple times, and it is not doing us any benefit. So what does the width block do is that writing just this once, the part that you're repeating every single time, we can include it in the width part, and then these can follow. Let's see how to do that. First, we will need to create a module that will say f underscore width block. There you have it. Double click. Here is our module editor. We'll create a sub that will say width block, brackets. We have our end sub here. First, let's take a look at our Excel. We are still in the same workbook, that is Macro VBA, and I have created a sheet called width block. As you can see, there is no content here, so let's put some content here. So we will give range A1 to A10 dot value, and let's put Intellipaat. So now we will run this. There we have our text. Now let's say I want to make some changes here, but I don't want to write range A1 to A10 dot font dot bold dot italics. So what we will do here is we will put width range. This will stay fixed, A1 to A10 and dot font. And with that, okay, so press enter. We come here. I will write this continues. So I will put dot bold equals to true. Then I will put dot italics equals to true. Then I will change the size, maybe dot size equals to, let's say it's 11 for now. I'll make it 15, and let's say I want to change the color as well. So I'll put dot color equals equals to VB red. Now let's try executing this, but there will be an error because we have started this with block and we have to end it. So we will put end with. Now that is done. Let's try executing by pressing F8. So this we have already entered. This will not do anything. Now let's see from here. It should turn bold. Yes, it does. Then italics. Size will go to 15. Then the color should turn to red. Now the width block ends. We come to the bottom of the code. As you can see, the difference between this code and this code, the size, the complication, everything reduces. Now that is how you work with the width block. Let's move on to our next hands-on. Now that we have seen how to implement the width block, our next hands-on is implementing borders through a macro. Let's see how to do that. As you can see, we are in our sheet again. That is the workbook macro VBA, and I have created a new sheet here that says borders. So let's see how to work with borders. Firstly, we will need to create a new module. So insert module, and the module name we'll give here is G_borders. Press enter. There you have it. Double click. We have the module editor. We'll create a sub called borders. Enter. And first we will need to enter the range and put in some data. We will give A1 to A10 dot value. We will give again Intellipaat. Now let's say I want to add borders and I don't want to keep on entering range each and every time. I want to make changes to those borders. As we learned the width block, we will use it right here. With range as A1 to A10, we will click on borders. We have borders right here. Press on enter and dot borders. We want the color to be VB red, and we want, let's see what options do we have here for borders. We have weight. Let's give the weight as 5. Now let's see what other options we have. Dot, you have color, count, item, line style, theme, color, tint and shade, value, weight. So we have, I think, enough examples to see. We'll just work with these two. And now we need to end with. So we'll type here end with. Let's try executing all this. We will press F8. Now let's see if the value gets entered. There you have it. The color of the border should be red. Let's see. Yes, we have the borders on all sides, and the weight should be 5 now. I'm able to set the weight property of the borders class. Let's reduce it to maybe 3 and execute it again. There you go. And that is how you apply borders and all the options that you have here. Now let's go ahead and check out our next hands-on. Now that we have implemented borders through a macro, next we have alignment. Let's see how to do that. So we'll see alignment now. As you can see, we are in the same workbook, Macro VBA, and I have created a new worksheet here called alignment. So we have the same steps. So first we will click on module, create a new module, name it as H_alignment. Now let's create a sub align, and now we'll put in some data. We will do C5 dot value and we'll put Intellipaat. So when I'm talking about alignment, you see right here we have this tab. Let's first execute this one and have our data here. Let's make some adjustments. So as you can see in the alignment tab, we have, let's say we'll select all this, and in this I want to change the alignment. This is top align, middle, bottom, this is left, center and right. It is pretty easy to do it from here. Let's see how do we get this access to our content from the macro. Now we'll open our VBA editor and we'll type in range A1 to C5 dot horizontal alignment. You can see right here, we'll give space equals to, we will type Excel right. And then we will do range C1 to C5 dot vertical alignment. Now the vertical alignment, we have top, bottom and middle. So we will give Excel, we will give bottom. Let's try executing this by pressing F8. So it moves to right and it goes bottom. Now we can do the width block here as well. Let's try that with range A1 to C5 and okay. I want horizontal alignment equals to Excel left and vertical alignment I want it to be Excel top. Let's try executing this. We need to end width and now we'll execute. That works. And top. Now the width block ends and that is it for alignment. Let's check out our next hands-on. Now that alignment is done, we will see our last hands-on, that is background color. So here we're again for the last hands-on. As you can see, we're in the same workbook, Macro VBA, and we have the worksheet called background color. Let's open our VBA editor and create a new module. We'll go to insert, module, and here we'll give the name I_background color. Double click, we have a module editor here. Now let's create a sub that says background color, parenthesis, get the end sub. Let's enter some data. Actually, we don't need to enter data here. We will just try to color the cells from A1 to A10. Let's see how to do that. We will select the range. We'll go from A1 to A10 dot. We have interior right here, and with interior we will select color. And as you know, like previously we used to do VB, and let's say I want to do black, and again I want to do the same thing, but instead of repeating and changing the color, we can use the width block here. So we will type in width. We'll give the range, that is A1 to A10, and every time we will just be changing the interior color. So interior dot, we won't give dot there, we will come right here and we will do dot color, and here we will give equals to VB green dot color equals to VB red, and now we will end with. Now let's try to execute this by pressing F8. We will color the cells black. As you can see, it's done. Now we'll execute these lines, that is green and red. Now we end the width block, and now the sub is also ended. As you can see, we have successfully added the background color to the cells A1 to A10, and that is all about adding background color. As you can see, we have finished up all these hands-on, and that is it for this video. Thank you so much.
Just a quick info, guys. If you are looking for data analytics course, then we have a good news for you. Intellipaat is providing an advanced certification in data analytics for business with IIT Madras. The course is of very high quality and very cost effective. The course link is given in the description below.